Daniel, this is K Don. Um,
What up? What up?
so
Nice to
formerly
meet
Meek. Um, Welcome back to Sprint Slow. Finally got K Don on here after a few weeks of trying to get him on here, man. Don't be laughing, but
Yeah.
we're just gonna jump. We're gonna jump right into it, man.
Oh boy.
Where did track and field first enter your life in Jamaica?
All right. I guess you'd have to say between ages 4 and 6, because we have this thing called Sports Day in schools, going all the way back to you guys would say kindergarten, and it's basically we just participate in different events, racing against each other. You know what I mean? And I was the fastest kid at my school at the time at about age 5 or 6. So that's when people started seeing that I have talent as an athlete, or some talent as an athlete. But I didn't have anybody there to keep me going, or to keep developing that talent. So I didn't get back into the sport until I was about 12. And at that time I started doing, at the first time I did anything was a thing called cross community, is what you guys would call cross country. But I did that for the first time, and I beat almost everyone that was on the track team. And I wasn't on the track team at the time. I wasn't doing any kind of sports other than soccer maybe, and I finished fourth in that race. So after that, I moved on to going to primary school championships to run the 800 and the 400. So that's where track and field really emerged in as a part of my life. But the funny thing is, when I was done with that, I said I didn't want to have nothing to do with track anymore. When I went to high school, I said I didn't want to have nothing to do with track because my legs always hurt when I ran. I was in pain, and I just said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. So when I went to high school, that was the intention. I was done with track, you know, but that's where it started.
The 800 to do that to you.
Now, it wasn't even the 800, it was the four.
It was a
You know
four.
what I mean? Yeah, it was that 400. I came to, obviously, later on, I learned that it was lactic acid that was causing that pain. You know what I mean? But back then, I didn't know what it was. I was just like, my legs hurt. You know what I mean?
Sound like a couple athletes I know right now, man. So I when did so so bridge the gap. So then when did pole vault come through? Because most most black people or Caribbean people, they don't want to pole vault, right?
So, so the funny thing is, in my high school, so I went to a high school, Jamaica College, which is one of the most prestigious high schools in Jamaica, especially when it comes down to sports. We're a huge sports school, and track and field is a huge part of that school. So I was just going home from school one day. I was in the seventh grade. This is the first year of high school, and I was going home from school one day, and I saw them jumping on sticks. At that time, I didn't have a clue what they were doing. So I saw them jumping on sticks, and I'm like, "Hey, yo, can I try that?" And nobody gave me any instructions or anything. I just grabbed the stick in my school uniform and everything, ran down there and did it. And they looked at me and said, "Yo, do that again, do it again." And I did it again, and they just kept on telling me to do it again until the coach came.
you.
And that's where I started pole vaulting. But the funny thing about pole vaulting in Jamaica, usually the only people that pole vault are the people that don't have talent to do anything else. You're not very good at sprinting. You're not very good at long jumping. You've tried the 800, You're not really good at anything else. So they say, all right, yo, just go try pole vaulting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people get into pole vaulting in Jamaica. But I literally started out as a pole vaulter, um, in high school. So that's where it started.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know you like I do, so I could imagine that was a competition, right? That was a competition. It started off of you can't get over this pole or something like that, and it
Well,
was
I
just
can
you
tell you
joking
one thing.
around.
I can tell you one thing: the competitive nature that I
Mm.
have is what had me land on my neck the first week of practice. You know what I mean? Because so basically the bar was up, and the older dudes were. So pole vaulting is an open event in Jamaica. So I was 12 years old at this time, and I'm training with dudes that's 18. I
Mhm.
mean, everybody's way older. So the bar is up, and coach just said, "Don't worry about the bar. Try to kick it. Try to kick the bar." And I'm trying to kick this bar, and I keep missing it by just a smidge. And then I finally really, really, really try everything, give everything I've got, and I barely touched it. And that's that relief that comes over you when you finally get something done. I let the pole go. I let the pole go, being upside down, and just landed head first. You know what I mean? So I learned the number one rule in pole vaulting that day: never let go.
So I think the big thing is you seeing a lot of Jamaica athletes switch teams to different countries for the Olympic team and stuff like that. That's gonna lead me to ask you, like, when you got that national pole vault record in Jamaica, like, what did you feel? Where was it at? What was the experience then? Recognition, all that type of thing, all that type of stuff.
Well, in reality, because Jamaica is basically the sprint factory of the world. And at the time when I was pole vaulting, Usain Bolt was in his prime. You know what I mean? Usain Bolt, Johan Blake, all these dudes were, what I mean, they were killing it at that point. So at the point that I set the national record, there wasn't really much recognition given to it. You know,
Mm.
nobody even really nobody really even knew that the national record was broken. There was no write up in the paper. There like it was just radio silence. You know,
Mm.
as a matter of fact, I broke the national record at a meet that America dominates. You know what I mean? They pretty much finish first and second every single year at that meet. And I was able to finish second at that meet with the national
Mm.
record. But like I said, there's not much talk about it. And but those who know. You know what I mean?
So that transition from there to then going to college. I remember having conversations with you about the college system and going to instead of looking at the money, for the college kids now with NIL and all that. And I remember you always to say, man, I went D1 and all this stuff, and I went where the money is, but I didn't go where the coach was. So like, we're gonna start piggybacking. We're gonna start transitioning to you know, what would you talk to the college, high school athlete about pole vault? Because a lot of pole vaulters that's chiming in and listening. I got a lot of people saying, when is he going to do his podcast? Um, you know, what would you say to them, especially with being a pole vault, chasing the athletic scholarship versus going to the coach? Because there's not that many coaches that really know pole vault, but a lot of these kids they want the athletic scholarship, but they're not really thinking about their future and their the progression.
Well,
Kadon, you went missing. Oh, there you go.
the truth is, man, if you got to decide, and it's not just about pole vaulting. This is not even just a pole vaulting question.
Oh,
This is important across all sports. Um, where you go and who the coach is gonna decide your future in the sport. You
yeah.
understand what I'm saying? So if you just want to earn your degree, then it really doesn't matter where you go. Follow the money. You see what I'm saying? If you just want to earn, if the most important thing for you is earning your degree, then follow the money. You see what I'm saying? But the truth is, you're gonna be able to get that degree no matter where you go. So the next step would be then, if you really want to be successful in your sport, who's the best coach for you, or who's the best team for you? So when I was being recruited, I pretty much did as much research as I could into the coach, into the program, into the school, because even though a program has a tradition of success in a sport, all right, then the school has a tradition of success, but how long has this coach been with this program, because not because not because the school has a tradition of success, that doesn't mean this coach could have just started last year, and that this coach may not have had any real success in the sport. You see what I'm saying? So I want to know, who has this coach mentored? How long did he mentor them for? What was their best before he started working with them, and what was their best when he was done working with them? You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
And my situation, I didn't really necessarily make um the best decisions, if you understand what I'm saying. But I made the best of the situation that I had.
Mm. Makes sense. Makes sense. So for the upcoming pole vaulters that's listening right now, drop some knowledge from just talking about pole vault. Just talking about pole vault in general. Someone that's just getting into pole vault, someone that's just stuck. What do you think some of the core things, like if you had to break pole vault up into like four core aspects of pole vault, what do you think the key things that you have to do? That's just the basic foundation if you want to be good at pole vault.
So I can speak for myself. I can use myself as an example. All right. When I was in high school, the truth is, the one of the most important things that you're gonna have to do as a pole vaulter is you're gonna have to be a student of the sport. You know what I mean? That's true for pretty much every sport, but you're gonna have to be a student of the sport. You can't just come to practice every single day and depend on coach to give you and spoon feed you all the information that you're going to need to be successful. When I say you're going to have to be a student, you're going to have to sit there and study film, watch the best pole vaulters in the world doing what they're doing, and not just watch, but analyze what they're
Mm.
doing, analyze video footage. You know what I mean? When I was in high school, I spent hours on hours on hours watching videos. Even the night before competition, I would be watching videos. So I'll tell you, um, there was a point where I was making big moves in terms of my PR. When I started making big moves in terms of my PR was when I started really analyzing film and not just watching it. So I sat down one night. It was a Friday, and I sat down and I watched some videos of my friends competing at the high school championships the previous year, and I watched some videos of professional pole vaulters doing it, and I made something just clicked. I looked at it and I said, "Oh, so he's doing this when he's supposed to be doing this, and he's doing this when he's supposed to be doing this." And I went to the competition the next day with one thing in mind. This is the key. This is the key. And I just focused on that one thing that I realized from watching those videos. And I moved my PR from three point I think it was 3.10 or 3.30 to 3.90 in one afternoon. And all it took was just me finally figuring out one simple little thing. You see what I'm saying? And after that, I finished the season. I think I finished that season with 4.10 meters, moving up from either 3.10 or 3.30. Either way, it's a huge jump. You see what I'm saying? I finished the
Mhm.
season with 4.10, and then the year after that, I moved from 4.10 to 4.60.
Mm.
You see, but it all comes down to what the year that I made 4.60. Still remember what propelled me into that realm. I was coming back from a competition, and my coach said to me, "Hey, Kadon, you have the best technique on the island right now. When you get faster and stronger, nobody will be able to touch you." And
Mm.
I took those words to heart. And I went home that day and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna do 100 push-ups right now. I'm not getting off my hands and knees until I'm done doing these push-ups." Got to the point where I could only do 5. Got to the point where I could only do 2. Got to the point where I could only do 1. But I never got off my hands and knees until I got done doing those push-ups. And I just started working like an animal after that. You know what I mean? I started working out twice a day as a high school athlete, and nobody was holding my hand to say, hey, come, we got to go work out. Come on, you got to go do this. I started working out twice a day, and I remember laying in my bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting there laying in bed saying to myself, damn, while I'm here laying in bed, my competition is out there training and getting better than me. So I
Mm.
started working out 3 times a day. So I woke
Mm.
up at 5 o'clock in the morning, worked out, went to school, worked out with the track team, came home, worked out again at like 6 o'clock in the evening. And it was so bad that the first day I worked out at 6 o'clock in the evening, when I was done, I felt like I didn't do enough. I felt like I didn't do enough. So I said, you know what, the next time I come back, I'm going to double it. And I literally doubled my workout. So when I started working out at 6 o'clock, I wasn't done till like 12 o'clock,
Okay.
literally.
Hey, we got like 10 minutes left, so I want to jump into one
So
thing.
hold on, to summarize what I think young athletes should be doing, when you're in high school, focus on your speed, focus on your strength, and really try to do things correctly technically. You see what I'm saying? Technique should come before you work on the speed and strength aspect. Because if you're too fast and too strong and your technique sucks, it's going to be twice as hard to work on technique, because the faster you do things, the harder it's going to be to get it done properly. You know what I mean? So that's how I would the process that I would go through. You want to work on your strength, you want to work on your speed, but really dial in and work on cleaning up your technique. You see what I'm saying? When you get a little bit older, when you get a little bit older, a little bit more experience, the speed and strength is not so much of a huge factor as it is just understanding the physics of what you're doing.
Mhm. Um, if I'm not mistaken, there was a great pole vaulter today that watched you pole vault back in the day, and I think may have asked for your autograph.
Oh yeah,
I think he might be a good pole vaulter today. Who was that? I think he might be
that
good.
was. I don't think he even remembers that, but yeah, when I was back in, I think it was 2011 or something like that. Yeah, I think it was 2011. Mondo Duplantis was watching me pole vault. Well, he actually watched me win at the pole vault summit in Reno.
Mm.
And he came up to me and asked me for my autograph, and I'm here looking at this dude like, damn, look at him. I can't even touch this dude right now. You see what
That's crazy.
I
It's just amazing because like as a coach, as an athlete, you never know who you touching, who you're around, and what the experience. So for Mondo to ask Kadon for an autograph, only I said, Kadon, you should have asked him for his autograph.
right,
Jokingly,
right.
that's the
I
big
think
thing.
to be honest, I probably did, because he was doing big things even when he was a kid. He's been breaking age group records his
Yeah,
entire life. He's literally broken every single age group record
yeah.
all the way up until now. So he was doing big things back then. I knew who he was when I met him. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like it was just some random kid coming up to me asking me for my autograph.
Yeah, for sure. Um, a little bit more pole vault specific. The free jump. A lot of coaches talk about having the pole hit the back of the collar before you take off. But when you look at Mondo, he's already in the air before the pole hit the. How
You
you feel
mean
about that?
you mean free takeoff?
Pre takeoff, yeah,
So free takeoff is something that I I did all the time almost, but I it's not something that I worked on.
yeah,
But it was something that was a necessity for me, because I'm a smaller dude. I'm only 5'10", 5'9". Most pole vaulters are much taller than I am. So for me, free takeoff was almost a necessity, because if I took off under the pole, I was going to feel it in some way. It was not going to be a very good jump. You see what I'm saying? So it's not everybody that's going to be able to accomplish free takeoff. You're going to have to it's there's a you have to be strong enough, you have to be fast enough, you have to be able to maintain your mechanics in at that takeoff point. because if you leave the ground, and as soon as you leave the ground, you're falling apart mechanically, you're gonna have issues with that free takeoff. It can hurt you more than it helps you. So you need to know where you are in terms of your strength and your technique to know if free takeoff is something that's viable for you. But it's something that everybody can accomplish. Um, but it's kind of like how they talk about dragging your toes in sprinting. A lot of athletes are training to drag their toes or practicing to drag their toes when they don't realize it's not something that you practice, it's something that happens on accident. It's because you're focusing so much on being explosive and really pushing that stride out that the leg is pretty much left back there and hits as you're pulling it through, not that you're actually trying to drag it on the ground. So when it comes on to free takeoff, yeah, all right, then your approach is 14 steps, and you know where exactly your steps are consistent. You're good enough, and your steps are consistent enough where you know if you move your step half a step back, you're gonna be a little bit outside your takeoff mark, because that's the idea, being able to take off outside your takeoff mark without reaching into the box to get the pole into the pocket. So you literally have to jump as if you're doing the long jump and hold that takeoff position until the pole hits the box. And then when the pole hits, be able to maintain the that takeoff with the force that's exerted as the pole hits the box. So you see what I'm saying? You got to have a strong
Mhm.
core and good technique to be able to get into that. If you want a good example of free takeoff, even you can find one of my videos on YouTube. The same meet that I won, that I met Mondo at, I had a video where I was about 2 feet outside the takeoff mark. In terms of literally, I was in air 2 feet before I actually hit the back of the box, if that makes sense. So that's a good example of what free takeoff looks like. It's I think it's called Kadon Samuels 2.25 meters or something like that on YouTube.
Mhm.
So that's a good example.
I think we got about 4 minutes left. Let's try to use, the last bit of time. Next episode we're going to talk about correcting the athlete too early. I got in my notes here, correcting the athlete too early can limit development.